Hello, everybody, and welcome to the LFC Transfer Room live stream with myself, Mihai, Dan, Patricio, and Neil. Thank you so much for joining us on this wonderful, wonderful Sunday evening or afternoon, wherever you may find yourself to be, or in Mihai's case, Sunday night, in Dan's case, Sunday afternoon. But wherever you are, everybody's a very happy boy, considering that we've just pumped Eric Ten Hag's Manchester United 3-0 at Old Trafford with very little ease. I thought the game was absolutely great. I think there could have been multiple mans of the match, to be perfectly honest with you, but it would have been Ryan Gravenberch for me. But I'll go around the room and I'll see what everybody else thought of the situation. Mihai, I'll throw it to you. You seem to be very ecstatic going through the game, very vocal in the group chat anyway, calling out Anthony Taylor for his bullshit calls, as you always do. So give me your thoughts on the game and how you thought it went.
Well, the fact that, I was a bit worried going into this, mainly because, I'm always, I have this feeling where I hate United so much that I cannot stand losing any points against them. Mm-hmm. So whenever we pump them like we did today, it just feels great. And with Taylor, wasn't that big of a nuisance in the end, just the beginning of it, but then he couldn't stop what was coming. I don't even know what to say. Like, part of me says, like I said after the game, it could have been more, but we'll take the 3-0. It's not that bad. Honestly, great performances all around. Like, I think for me, well, obviously Gravenberch, I think, was the one that stood out again in that sixth position. Then Luis Diaz, the one that I've been calling out in preseason for not being clinical enough, was clinical enough, scoring from like not even 1 XG. I think he scored twice. So great finishing from him and from Mo as well. I think McAllister was great again. I just don't really have anything bad to say about the game today. I think everyone was great. I think there was like 15, 20 minutes maybe where we weren't like on top of them. But like for the rest of the game, it was just perfect.
Yeah, to be honest, the first 15 or so minutes, it was a bit back and forth. It was very end to end. And then Trent's goal happened that was disallowed, and it kind of set the tone then for the rest of the game. I don't think we took our foot off the gas pedal for the remainder of the game until their legs went, and I don't think they didn't have a bench either. If anybody went and looked at their bench, it was Johnny Evans, Harry Maguire, Anthony, and then a bunch of kids and 2 goalkeepers on the bench. You looked at our bench: Darwin Núñez, Cody Gakpo, Conor Bradley. Who else came on? Costa Simicas came on as well. There was 4 subs there. They're Premier League starting level players, whereas United didn't really have anything. Dan, both myself and yourself have been singing Ryan Gravenberch's praises ever since he was moved to the 6th position, and we've said that he could be a 6, and I called it about a year ago that he has the physical attributes to become a good 6. Maybe it just wasn't in Klopp's team. Maybe it was actually in Arne Slot's team. If it wasn't Ryan Gravenberch, however, who would you have given the man of the match to?
I think it's a close tie between Luis Diaz, obviously, for scoring the 2 goals, Mohamed Salah and Dominic Szoboszlai. I know Carter's mentioned a lot in our chat that, that Szoboszlai's pressing from the middle as like part of a dual striker, well, like a 4-2-4 pressing shape. I think it's the best performances we've seen from Szoboszlai since the beginning of last year. He got an assist today, I believe, for Salah's goal. I believe it was.
Yeah.
So I see if it's not Gravenberch, I think you can give it to Szoboszlai, Salah, or Diaz, and you can just flip a coin for which one. Obviously, I think Diaz, I think, has the quintessential forward game where the ball bounces off of him for 20, 25 minutes, scores 2 goals. Everyone's like, yeah, he was kind of crap, but he scores 2 goals. And that's the best kind of performance from a forward that you can have, where you're just not that good for a bit and then you score 2 goals and no one really cares by the end. So if I had to give it to someone, I think it'd be Dominic Szoboszlai. I just think he was everywhere. I think he was always harrying United's defense. If it wasn't for maybe trying to pass the ball into an empty net, I think he could have had a goal too as well.
Yeah.
And I think that would have capped his performance. And I just think what you're seeing is Slot just making slight tweaks to what Klopp had the team doing, where it's a bit more structured, it's a bit less chaotic. It's a little bit less vertical back and forth. It still is vertical at times, but it's just the tendency to do it is way less, I think, built into the DNA. And I think with how easy he has adjusted that is a sign that what he's doing is not that different than what Pep Linders and Jurgen have been doing. So I would give it to Szoboszlai as another man of the match just for his complete overall performance. But again, you could give it to Luis Diaz or Mo Salah as well if you don't want to give it to Ryan Gravenberch. I do want to say though, because I'm gonna harp on this for every single day, that I think Robertson had a really good game against like Garnacho. I think he was very good as well. I think a lot of criticism has been thrown Robert's way the past 2 years. Even last year, I think he got a lot of criticism, and this year at times too. I thought he was very good. He was neat and tidy on the ball. Not man of the match performance, but just if you think about where United's could have gotten joy, it was on the wings with Rashford and Garnacho, and I think he did very well on his wing. And Rashford, maybe on the end of the day gets 2 assists, and maybe it's a 3-2 game. It's a bit more edgy, but yeah, I think you give it to Szoboszlai as the man of the match besides Gravenberch.
Yeah, really, I don't really have any arguments there, and I don't think there's many. There was the big three, Patricio, realistically, of for me anyway, it was Diaz, Salah, and Ryan Gravenberch. And I think Ryan Gravenberch did pretty much everything other than score or assist in this game. I have his numbers here, just so I bring them up. Accurate passes 83%, all of his tackles won, 4 interceptions, 8 defensive actions, 6 recoveries. 2 of those recoveries resulted in our first 2 goals, and 70% of his duels won, which is absolutely nuts.
I hate to be a wind-up merchant, but if we had bought Ryan Gravenberch this summer as our 6th position, no one would be talking about it. If he was bought this year and had those performances for 3 games, we would talk about him, how we replaced Fabinho, how he's the best 6 since Rodri, besides Rodri or Rice at this point. And I'm not saying that to disregard anybody saying that Liverpool need a number 6 or defense, or whatever you think Liverpool need to buy. I think you can totally make an argument for that, but any player we would have bought this summer that would have had those numbers, we'd be praising them to the moon and back. Like if you told me that Romeo Lavia had those numbers for Liverpool or Moises Caicedo, we'd be saying excellent deal. Richard Hughes best GM, Jörg Schmacke best not general manager, I'm sorry, sporting director ever. Yeah. And I think we have to acknowledge that Gravenberch he always had this potential to be a world-class number 6 going back to Ajax, but we're seeing what he can be right before our eyes.
Yeah. And Patricio, obviously, just to be the flip side of that, Jamie Hughes has mentioned here that he'll have growing pains. Today was really the first big test that Ryan Gravenberch had. And a lot of us had the worries that today might sink our hopes of him being the 6. How has he convinced you so far that he could be the 6 for the future and we may not even need to buy one going forward?
So at first I was a bit hesitant about it. Last season, like someone said in the comments, it was a bit slow to the ball, didn't really press as much. This time he's dropping deep, picking up the ball, seems so comfortable, willing to turn to players and push into space. You can see it multiple times. Like, yes, there were some occasions where he could have made a different pass out on the wing and he chose something else and it got intercepted. But to be fair, he had an amazing game. I thought first 15 minutes weren't too amazing, but then you can see he really got into it, really fit into the squad. Personally, I'd give him a man of the match. I know Sky Sports gave it to Luis Diaz, also played an amazing game, although I didn't feel as comfortable with Diaz at the start. I've always been one of those people in our, especially in our group chat, that have sort of commented against Luis Diaz a little bit, but I like that he's performing for us. His head's currently with Liverpool, and I like that. But yeah, no, I think Gravenberch played a great game. He definitely controlled the midfield very well and just was willing to take on the press. Didn't feel like it hindered him at all. Wasn't the flip side, wasn't a Casemiro. So yeah, no, I think he's done a superb job and just hope he continues to do so.
Yeah, I completely agree with it. It's I'm going to take some flowers on it and some credit on it, because I did say on stream 9 to 12 months ago that he could have the body to be an absolutely unbelievable 6 in the right system. and it looks like we might have found the right system. Neil, you mentioned in the chat that now it's a bit of a partnership, but I'll just move on from the players and the game for a moment to speak about Mohamed Salah's comments after the game. And we've gone back and forth about this, multiple people in the group chat, in relation to the contract situation currently at the moment. And this is now both Virgil van Dijk and Mo Salah stating that the club have yet to speak to them on a contract situation. Do you feel that the club has something ready and that they're going to start moving on it now? Or is this a situation that maybe one of the big three of Trent, Mo and Virg may not get a renewal? Or how do you see this playing out over the next couple of months?
I'd be very disappointed if they didn't get any offer of renewal, because I think, all right, Trent's obviously young, much younger than the other two, and has to be offered a new deal. The other two have proven that they're still at the very top of their game. And I wouldn't even know how we would go about replacing them. So for me, I was a bit worried with what Salah said to start with, because he said it's his last season. But then he went on to say that no one at the club has spoken to him about staying, which suggests to me that he is interested in staying, and he wants the club to open negotiations with him. Why there has been no dialogue with him or the captain up until now, I don't know, and that's slightly concerning. But I think I came away from his comments feeling fairly positive that he wants to stay. And Carragher was saying about it, he is obsessed with breaking records. He will try and play for as long as he possibly can. And you just got to look at his performance today: 2 assists, a clinical finish, and he looks. I know he had a rough end to last season, but he just looks like Mohamed Salah, and he's going to go on and get 20 goals, 20 assists, and it's a no-brainer. They must be offered new deals. I'd be very concerned if they weren't offered new deals, and I'd rather we did it sooner rather than later, because stability. And I read something earlier. Someone was making a point about we didn't do a lot during the summer because we wanted stability. I'm not sure whether I buy it, but fair enough. But those three are part of that stability, and we need them there going forward, leading us into the Arne Slot era.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Like it would be criminal, and anybody that sat on the fence for FSG and the state of the club that it is at the moment, and the sporting director and Michael Edwards being there, unless you have 2 of the 3 re-signed, if one won't accept the deal and you're offering the deal and they're just being unreasonable about it, like in some cases there's not a lot that the club can do about that. Realistically, you can table your offer, and if their rebuttal is beyond what would be warranted, that's fine, because realistically I don't see where they go up from here. I don't see who they join other than going to City or Saudi Arabia or Real Madrid, where they will be winning or in competition to win as many trophies every season. It's one of them that you're at the peak, if not near the peak of the mountain, and moving up becomes incrementally harder. And it's just one of them that even if the sporting director, if Richard Hughes and Michael Edwards and all of those backroom staff, if they don't nail 2 of the 3, serious questions for anybody sat on the fence will have to be asked, because I'm one of those fence sitters. I don't think the way that I view FSG is, and Patricio, myself and yourself have had back and forth about this, but the way that I view how FSG are is, I will never have to wake up tomorrow morning knowing that my club is in jeopardy or due a points deduction, because we are run very efficiently, self-sustaining, and that comes with some headaches. It does. Nobody's saying that they're perfect owners. I'm certainly not, but I'd much rather have FSG compared to the Glazers, compared to Todd Bowley, and I'd much rather FSG than state ownership like City have, because that's just soulless, in my own opinion. But I think it's, as Neil, you've mentioned, that it's completely unacceptable that if nothing is done with them and they're all allowed to walk free, I think, as you said, abseiling down Anfield Road end, I'll be swan diving off the Cop end if that's what happens, to be perfectly honest with you. And anybody, as I said, that is sat in the fence about FSG and how the club is run will fall one side or the other of it, and it'll cause a massive rift throughout the fan base if two of those three are not done. You can just understand it if one of them isn't, purely because it could be unreasonable contract. There could be so many different things. Like, for example, Trent could say, I'm not coming, I'm not staying, I'm going to Real Madrid. And that could be him. There's nothing that the club can do about that, unfortunately. It's just, the club is really sort of, and I hate to say this, and feel free if anybody wants to disagree with me, the club has been handcuffed by Jurgen Klopp's decision. And whether obviously it was directly or indirectly a cause of it, it was still a cause of it, because last summer he would have had doubts because he made his decision in November, or notified the club of his decision in November, meaning that if he did try and sit down with the players at that time, he'd have to look them in the face and say, yes, I'm going to be your manager, because they would have wanted those reassurances. And then him turn around and say, oh, I'm gone, I'm out the door. 3 months later, you would have had those three players up in arms and maybe ready to leave the following summer if they signed any sort of an extension. Then when it comes to January, well, nothing could have been done in January because he told the club in November that he's going, and then told the players in January, and now they're all up in arms. So they needed to see who's going to be the next guy coming in and what's he going to be like. And Virgil van Dijk, Salah's been there most of the summer. Trent hasn't been. Virgil's kind of been there half of the summer. That's why Salah is so keen to stay, because he sees the project. He sees that it's working. Trent obviously sees that as well, and Virgil's starting to see it too. This is the first time a manager's won all games, all three of their first games. We've not conceded a goal yet. Long may it continue. We've scored 7 goals in 3 games. I don't like, at the moment, we're the most on-form team in the Premier League. And that's madness to say, considering we've technically only spent £12.5 million on a new signing for this season. It's nuts. Mihai, you would have been in much of a similar camp as myself, as kind of sat on the fence a little bit in regards to FSG. What's the threshold for them and the sporting directing staff and backroom staff to nail these contracts? Is it 1 of 3? Is it 2 of 3? Or do they need to nail all 3 down for future deals?
I think I pretty much agree with you again on the new contracts. I feel like 2 out of 3 is, I mean, look, ideally it would be 3 out of 3, right? But then again, you don't really know if Mo wants if Mo wants something crazy on a contract. Then I think him leaving next summer won't be the end of the world. Like, I think we all know what Mo means to Liverpool, right? But then these days kind of have to come. We've been through it with Sadio, with Bobby as well, with lots of other players in the past few years. So I feel like, for me personally, it wouldn't be the end of the world if Mo leaves next summer. But obviously, it depends. If we're not offering him a contract at all, then yes, I am going to be upset. But then, you know, with Verge and Trent, there's no conversation to be had. Like, for me, Verge, even at his age, I think still has a few good years in him in the Prem to be at a top level. Trent, come on, it's like if he were to play for Madrid in the next 5 years from now on, he would be one of the best right backs in the world for everyone else. But because he's playing for Liverpool and he doesn't have all the trophies and he doesn't have all the glamour, then it's not going to be acknowledged by everyone. But Trent is just a generational talent. So yeah, for me, that's kind of it. The one thing that I love, because I've seen questions about business in the chat as well regarding United and ourselves. I think this summer hasn't been. I still think we need to proceed with caution throughout the season, because I think we've started off the season a lot better than I think myself and everyone else probably has expected. I don't think everyone thought we were going to get 9 points, 3 clean sheets, and the start of the season that we've had. I still think we're short in some positions, but we're not going to get into that now because we're going to have other days to discuss that. I just think the business that we've done this summer, I think with Chiesa is, I mean, personally, I wouldn't have gone there as my first, as my priority. But that's not necessarily a high risk signing. And it's basically close to a no risk signing if you look at it that way, because it's like spent 13 million on a player that's had great seasons in Italy. So, and for Italy and in the Euros as well. So yeah, I think what kind of shows it all is the fact that out of all the former Ajax players on pitch today, the best one was playing for us. So that kind of the only one that performed at all was playing for us, and it kind of says it all about business in the last few years.
Yeah. That's something as well. Like, Patricio, you've been with somebody that's been very critical over the business over the summer that we've done, or lack thereof, should I say. When it comes to these deals, is there a threshold of error for you, or a threshold that needs to be met? Like, is 1 okay? Is 3 okay? Does it have to be 2? What's your make or break point with these 3?
I think it sort of has to be like, it hasn't got to be, you have to make an abundance of signings. Like I said before, I said it in the chat, I don't want it to be like Todd Bowler. I don't want it to be like a Chelsea where you're just buying an abundance of players and you're like running around like headless chickens trying to find who fits the squad and having to cut the squad down. I don't want that. I wanted Slot to assess the team over the preseason. Obviously, he didn't have the full strength team, the full first squad, but since having players back, I wanted him to be able to see what positions needed strengthening. Obviously, Robbo won't be able to play for much longer. Maybe a couple, 2-3 seasons possibly. You can see he's starting to potentially get outpaced. We know that we've wanted a 6. It's just a different type of 6. It's not a Fabinho. It's someone kind of like Gravenberch, like a Zubimendi. Someone who is a bit better on the ball and can progress forward. And then I think we do need to look to the future, and we do need to look for a Salah replacement. Obviously, we have Chiesa. We need to see how that goes. I think it's good business for what we've done. That's smart, but it's not priority. Obviously, all different fans will have their different priorities of where they think needs strengthening, and obviously the club will then have their thoughts as well. They've made their decision, and to be fair, so far, like you said, gone into the games 3. We've won 3 games out of 3. We're doing well so far, so there's not a problem there. But then what happens if, I don't want it to happen, but if Gravenberch gets injured, then what? Does he go back to Endo or Jones at the 6th role? We'll have to see what happens, and I don't know. That's the only worrying thing, is that that's the only place we didn't bolster. We kind of bolstered to give Salah a bit of time to rest, which is good because we don't want to wear him out. But yeah, only time will tell. I feel like, yes, I have been quite critical of FSG, but it's not. I don't need an abundance of signings. I just need smart business. And Mihai was touching on it. I think you need to. The only reason I'd say to extend Mo's contract is so he doesn't leave on a free. I don't see how him leaving on a free is good business for us. With Trent and Virgil, they have to be, because I feel like Trent's going to be our future captain. He's even said so himself. He wants to be. Whether his mind's changed or not, I don't know. But like I said, he's sort of seeing the system come into play. Like, they're seeing what Slot's vision is. So out of the priorities for me would definitely be Virgil. Then it would definitely Trent, then Virgil, and then Salah only for business. So this season, and potentially see what he does next season. But I think under Klopp, I would have wanted Salah to potentially go and be sold. But in this new system, got a new haircut, seems a bit more energetic. We're getting the best out of him again. So only time will tell, though.
Yeah. Neil, I see you smiling there with Patricio mentioning how selling Mo Salah last season. Now, I was also in that camp that you need to kind of cash in on these players before they lose their football. But Mo Salah isn't Casemiro, as we've so evidently seen this season, thankfully. And it doesn't seem like the football is going to be leaving him at all. What's the threshold for you? Does it have to be all 3, or even attempting all 3? Where's the margin for error in these 3 deals, or is there any?
No, I think I would be really, really annoyed if we didn't attempt all 3, because Mihai mentioned about Firmino and Mane. You could see there was a clear decline in their performances. They still contributed, but Bobby started to pick up more injuries. Sadio had gone really stale on the left, came back a little bit when he moved central. So you could see there was clear decline there. I actually think we're seeing a Mohamed Salah whose all-round game now is probably as good as it's ever been, because we had Mohamed Salah, the goal scorer, that everyone said was selfish. Now we've got Mohamed Salah, who still gets high volume of goals, but now is contributing a huge number of assists as well. So I think we've got someone there that's physically, he's probably not as it's very difficult to say he's not where he was 2-3 years ago, because he's in fantastic shape, but we've got more of an all-round player. So for me, that's a no-brainer. Virgil van Dijk, we take for granted. I think he gives us a certain level of performance week in, week out. Who do you replace him with? He can play. He's a Rolls Royce. He can play for another 4 or 5 years. So those two for me, they're in their 30s, but I don't think there's any risk of extending them and giving them, a 3-year extension for example. Trent, as we said, generational talent, mid-20s. We're still to see the best of him, and he wants to be the captain of the team going forward. So for me, there's all three of them are no-brainers. The cost to replace them, potentially all in one summer, is astronomical. So let's secure those three, and then we can invest funds into areas where we really need it, which is not in, we're not talking major resurgery. We're talking about topping up a really impressive squad. So offers must be made to all three. And as you said earlier, if it comes to the player turning it down because they want silly wages, fine. That's not really within our control. Although they want to move on, great, fine. But we have to offer all three, because all three are such critical players to this team. And I think, they can see that we're going in what seems to be a decent direction. So any doubts they might have had about Jurgen leaving, you would hope that they will continue to diminish. Salah looks as happy as he's looked for ages. So offer all three, get them done soon, and then we can concentrate on other areas that might need a bit of refining.
Yeah, no, I see. I don't think anybody's in much of a disagreement here. It's a matter of just give them offers, negotiate, open the negotiations, and then if it turns around, if they're just acting the prick about it, walk away.
Because yeah, but I think with Salah, I think
he wants to stay. I think he'll take. If you hand him a deal, he'll take it.
But it's a different situation to players. We had a number of players that got into their 30s and did decline. Mm-hmm. There's no real signs of decline in him at the moment.
He looks like he's having a bit of a second wind. I'm not going to lie.
No, he had a rough. His levels have not really dropped. Maybe you could argue after both AFCON tournaments they dropped, and certainly after last year's, his performances when he picked up the hamstring injury, he didn't come back as strong. But he has got himself fitter. He's got himself really, really supremely fit again, and he's at the top of his game. There's no signs of decline.
Yeah, I think that's why they didn't offer him a contract when they made that change, was because of what happened after AFCON, the injury, because he came back against the Brentford game, had a great 20-30 minutes, picked up an injury and was out and inconsistent. And honestly, I think the reason they haven't offered to Virgin and Mo is because they've been working on Trent's, because Trent literally said, walking out the game, I'll be back here next year. He said it to the camera as he's walking out. And Trent's the priority. I mean, I've said this.
He was saying like he's coming back to the camera the next time he scores to kiss the camera like Jared. I think that's what he meant, not I'll be back as in I'll be back.
Steven, you're ruining my moment here. You're ruining it. You're ruining my read again here. Because I've said even back to last year that the priority player to sign is Trent Alexander-Arnold. It's just, it's no question about it. You can kind of figure out ways to around the Van Dijk and the Salah question, not with direct players, but you can change styles, approaches. You can find players that are still very, very good, but not at those ridiculous levels. I think that's what the Chiesa signing tells me, is that they're already preempting if Salah does not sign.
Yeah.
Or if the fact they're like, we're not going to give him the same money that he's on because he's on, obviously a very good contract that Julian Ward negotiated. It is now a course at Harvard Business School on how to negotiate image rights and all these other things as well. I think Trent's the priority for the signing because he's the one player that there's no one in world football that does what Trent Alexander-Arnold does. Like Salah, yes, is amazing, and I'm not trying to play him down. Virgil van Dijk is the best center back in the world still. Arguably, I still think he is. The two, you can't replace what Trent does. Like today, he literally, his second long pass of the game, he plays it 60 yards right to Salah's feet without a touch. Between it's ridiculous. And obviously, Steven, you watch NFL like I do, so you know that they're going to get the priority guy down first, and then see if anybody else will do a quote unquote team friendly deal. And I think length of contract is going to be the sticking issue. Is that I think Virgin Trent want 3 years, and I think Hughes and Edwards might do 2 with a third option to extend, similar to what Allison has currently. And I we'll have to see, because obviously even Trent hasn't extended yet. And if they get Trent done, if you don't hear anything about those deals, I think then they're going to let them go walk on a free. And I think of all the players we've let walk on a free, no one has really been the same. Emre Can didn't pull up trees at Juventus, and he's still at Dortmund. Bobby Firmino's in, Saudi Arabia. Sadio Mane they sold. Genie, they sold him. He broke his leg. He hasn't really been the same. I'm not saying that just because it's happened before, it's going to happen again with Trent and Verge, because I think, with Verge and Salah, because I think with Verge, he could go to any team and still be top level European Championship football. And with Mo Salah, if he leaves on a free, he's not going to Saudi Arabia. He's going to, Juventus. He's going to PSG, Madrid, Barcelona, not Barcelona because they're broke, but he's going to a top European side. I would even argue he could probably go to Bayern Munich next year and still perform at a very high level. And I think that's the big difference between these players versus like your Matips and your players in the past. And I think that's why everyone's a bit anxious and tetchy over the contract negotiations. But for me, Trent is the priority first and foremost, and everybody else, it's a matter of open, as Neil said, open negotiations, and if they turn it down, so be it. But if they don't make an effort for it, that is kind of you have to ask questions as to why. Though again, whether or not that causes a riot on Hughes and Michael Edwards, John Henry, Tom Warner, and Mike Gordon, I don't think so. But again, we'll have to see.
Yeah, the way that I look at it is, it's one of those situations where I think that they're purely just it's as you said, Dan, with the NFL, it's when one domino falls, the other two should fall very quickly after it. Because if they, like, let's say they do Salah first, then Trent is going to sit there and be like, okay, Salah's staying for 3 more years. That's somebody done. And then all of a sudden you have Verge saying, oh, okay, Salah's staying for 2 more years or 3 more years. And that then entices them to be like, okay, let's keep the gang together, so to speak. It's keeping your core together in a situation. And then if Trent is the first domino to fall, you're going to see Virgil be like, okay, they're serious. Trent is staying. He's not going anywhere. I'll extend here as well. And then you have the 2 of them down, and then all of a sudden the third one just becomes a formality at that point. When one domino falls with these contract extensions, the remainder of them will fall as well, because they'll just see them coming through.
And I think Trent's the priority because he's going to be on the longer contract. So if they give big money extensions to Verge and Salah, then Trent's automatically going to want parity. Yeah. So getting Trent's contract high but reasonable, we don't. Liverpool have one of the highest wage budgets in the world. We don't pay these players pennies just because DIAZ has a lower contract than everybody else. Doesn't mean that Liverpool give crap contracts to players, but they're going to want to get Trent's down as best they can before, I would say, even opening our conversation with Verge and Salah, because they can use Trent's contract as a comparison. So going to Verge saying, okay, Verge is on, what is he on, 250, Steven?
250. Verge is on 220, Salah's on 350, Trent is on 180.
So I imagine Trent's going to get 285, not including rights and bonuses and all that. And they'll say to Verge, we'll give you 250, but 2 years. And they'll say Salah, we'll keep you on the same contract, but 1 to 2 years. Or they might even say, we'll keep your contract at. They might say, we'll give you 300, but we'll give you higher bonuses for performance related. And this is the thing. These are long, complicated labor contracts. You know, you need you have a lawyer in the room and your agent and everything else while doing these up. These are not simple, you know, slap a piece of paper and sign it. As much as I think at times we interpret it that way because of we don't usually get the in and outs of these deals. But the reality of them is that it's going to take. They're going to have to get Trent's done first before they can even negotiate those players.
Yeah, I think Trent is going to be the first domino to fall. After that, then the other two should fall into place very quickly. I heard a couple of talking mentions here that what worries me, Salah saying my last performance at Old Trafford for Liverpool. You're missing the other part of that quote. He then also went on to say it's not up to me. It's my it could be because I'm going into this season as it's my last season because I haven't been offered a new contract yet. It's not just him saying this is my last season. Every single news outlet is going to soundbite that and milk that part of the quote for every click that they can possibly get. So don't fall for it. Read the full quote and just read what he said, because he said, because I haven't been offered a new contract yet, I'm saying this is my last season here. He gets handed a contract tomorrow, he'll say yes, and then all of a sudden it's not my last season here anymore. Mihai, would you be of the same opinion as myself in that? Sorry, who's going to speak there? Patricio, my bad. Go ahead, my friend.
So I was just going to add that didn't Mo say recently that his kids are Scousers now anyway?
Yeah, so he says he speaks the language. Yeah,
he said his Egyptian kids that have been raised in a fully Egyptian household are Scouse and have a Scouse accent.
So if you listen to his daughter talk, I think you can hear it sometimes on his video. Mecca, she speaks exactly with like a young Scouse like girl. Like it's so funny. It's really, really cute. He is truly a Scouse legend now.
Oh, 100%. And there should be, and I would hope there is, a statue for that man built outside. As you said, Neil, that he's just manic to break records. I think he's very close to being inside the top 10 Premier League goal scorers of all time. He's very close to beating Henry's goals and assists record, or even just goals record. The second he beats that, he's going to be like, I'm just the best winger that's ever played in the Premier League. So I'm going to be happy with that. He's also nearly inside the top 10 in Champions League goal scorers all time. He's going to want to nail that this season. He has extra games to do it too. So I can very much see him nailing all of that, signing a new deal, and just strutting his way into the sunset in 3 or 4 years' time, retiring as a Liverpool legend in my own situation. That's the way that I look at it. And Verge, I consider something similar as well. The maddest statistic that I've ever seen is that at Anfield, Virgil van Dijk has a better win percentage. There's more chance of Virgil van Dijk winning a game at Anfield than there is of Michael Jordan hitting a free throw throughout his whole career. Let that number sink in. There is more chance of Virgil van Dijk winning a game at Anfield than there is of Michael Jordan hitting a free throw in his whole career. I'm nearly sure that that's the statistic, or else it's like 3 or 4% off in the difference. It's something like, I'm sure Dan will correct me in a moment because I know he's looking it up. But Mihai, would you be of a similar opinion that Trent is going to be the first domino to fall, like agreeing with Dan, that Trent's going to be your first domino and then the other two should fall into place very, very neatly after that, because they'll see the big boy is here, he's staying, he's committed his future to this, he believes in this project. I'd look like a bit of a tit if I didn't do the same.
And I think it's not even that, but yeah, to answer the question, I think Trent is the first one should be the first one to be given the new contract. I think someone in the chat also said that Never Give Up said that Madrid want him, so Trent should be a priority. So obviously that's one thing to also worry about. Although for Trent, I would be really surprised to see him refuse a contract or want to go anywhere else. But I guess you never know. But yeah, I think all three, when you think about it, all three, let's not bring Trent. Trent is an academy graduate, but let's think about Mo Salah and Virgil van Dijk, who were let's say Scousers. They've come here and they've lived their best parts of definitely their best years of their careers here. And now to think that you're also going to have these guys, you know, next to you for the next 2-3 years, I think that's a pretty big reason to kind of, I think it's a no-brainer for them if they're given the contract to just, you know, go ahead and sign it. Because I think when you've lived these seasons here at Liverpool, I just think it's, when you look at Liverpool and you look at the players that have left Liverpool, it's quite obvious that there's a connection between the clubs and its players like nowhere else, especially in England. So I think for me, I could not see any of Mo Salah or Virgil van Dijk turn out contracts if it came to that. So yeah, that's how I think. For me, it's still, both of them are still, you know, probably their best players in their positions in the world at the moment. Still,
Yeah.
So there's no reason for me to think that they could decline in the next 2-3 seasons. And even if they do, we're not going to offer them, you know, a contract for more than 3 years anyway. So yeah, I just think that's how it's going to be played out. And I'm just hoping that we're going to have the squad to, you know, help them and achieve some more at Liverpool.
Yeah, and I think something that some people aren't looking at as well is every new contract sets a precedent for the one after it. So as Dan mentioned, if you sign Mo and Verge to contracts before Trent, you then have Trent coming in and saying, okay, well, that's what they're worth. Now I'm going into my prime, so pay me what I'm worth. You set the value and set the precedent with the first deal that you sign. So there shouldn't be much of an issue when it comes to these contracts. But just it's something that's been muddied over what was a fantastic day and game that was played with. It's and 200 Premier League games. Virgil van Dijk hits 200 Premier League games with a 70% win rate, all-time best at Liverpool. Just sign the fucking deal.
Michael Jordan's free throw percentage, by the way, was 83%.
I knew I was 3% off. Damn it, I knew it. I knew I was close. So Michael Jordan has a 3% more chance of hitting a free throw than Virgil van Dijk has of winning a game of football at Anfield. Even that is still ludicrous to say.
But isn't Van Dijk's higher because he's like 80? He has 2 losses in 90 games or something.
Yes,
but
but
it's
draws.
win percentage.
Win percentage. If it's losing a game, then it's like 98%. Yeah, if it's losing a game, then yeah, he's a higher way. There's more chance of Virgil van Dijk, or there's less chance of Virgil van Dijk losing a game than there is of Stephen Curry hitting a free throw in the NBA, and he's up in the 90s. But yeah, see, I told you, Dan, I'd find that statistic and tell me I was wrong. But we are going to leave it there, guys. I'm going to see if there's any questions that have been fired into the chat just before we hang it up, or if anybody wants to fire it in. This is actually something that I wanted to bring up. Just, Neil, I'll throw this to you as the last topic before we finish up. Hillier mentioned in here, looking at Man United, the team that has spent 650 million euros in the last 5 years, 214 of which was this summer. I must ask, where did the money go? They didn't even have a bench today. And I don't know if you spotted that yourself, Neil, today, but their bench comprised of Anthony, Johnny Evans, Harry Maguire, 2 goalkeepers and 3 children. I know we were harping on about signings and everything all summer, but sometimes no move is the best move. And when it comes to them, it's fairly self-evident that smarter business at lower prices and waiting for the right player seems to be the way to go.
Yeah, I just on us, I think keeping players fit is going to be more important, if you like, than what transfer business that we did. But in terms of them, I did actually speak to someone earlier, and I said, who in their squad would you actually want in our squad? And you're really struggling to look at anyone and think they're going to be an effective player in our squad. Mainu, for me, he come onto the scene. He's nice on the ball, but I think he's been overhyped, if I'm honest. So, and they have done bad business. So the one that stands out like a sore thumb because of the way he played today was Casemiro. Brilliant first season, but they gave him a 5-year deal, I think, when he was 30 or 31. And
80 million of a transfer fee too, which is nuts.
Yeah, a huge transfer fee. And you could tell that even at Real Madrid, he was starting to lose his pace and mobility a bit. And he's come to a league that's probably got a higher tempo. So bad decisions Anthony, another one, 80 million, 90 million, whatever it was. For what? And Mo Salah has got more goals at Old Trafford than Anthony has. So I think they've made a number of bad decisions. I think they thought that the new regime was going to be kind of the changeover point, if you like, that they'd start like, and you can see that they have targeted younger players and talented youngsters. Because I think Zertsky had a good season at Bologna last year and was highly rated when he was at Bayern Munich. Lenny Yoro, there was obviously a lot of noise about Yoro and his potential, although there was some rumours that it was picked up in his medical that he did have an issue with his feet or his ankle. So yes, they're trying to make smarter moves in the transfer market, but they still seem to be overpaying for players, and they seem more interested in getting a player in because it seems like it's going to look good, rather than actually waiting and getting the ones that they really need. So in answer to the question, bad business, bad decision making over a sustained period now. I mean, this isn't just 2-3 years, it's longer term than that as well, isn't it?
I think the quintessential watershed moment for Manchester United was when Ollie had that good season. He came back and they went and bought Jadon Sancho, and there was very much this vision of like a younger rebuild of the team that they're doing now. They tried to do 3 years ago, and instead of spending that money on a young striker or more defensive cover or a midfielder, they went and spent money on Ronaldo, and they did it because he might go to City, and it was for the feel good factor. And I think that's just been quintessential of United's business strategy, is that with Anthony, they bought him because Erik ten Hag lost the first 2 games of his career at Manchester United and were embarrassed at Brentford before they beat us 2-1 during that bad season we had. So I think that this summer, the problem with United is not just the amount of money they spend, it's that they cannot stick to a strategy. Ten Hag's been stuck between being proactive and reactive for 3 years, and you can see in his team, even today with the stats they show, there's a clear break where you have the midfield, you have the 6 defending with their connection, and then the 4 forwards, and there's no lines between them. And I think that's essentially been Ten Hag's problem at United, and United's approach is that they're a broken team with a broken transfer policy that's trying to just fill gaps, and there's no agreement on what this team should be. And that just, I would say, a more recent memory goes back to when Ollie came in, and then he said, "This is how I want to do this," and then they did not do that. And even Ralph Rangnick came in and said, "You need to do this," and they didn't do it. So you can only get so many managers and players coming in to say, or like sporting directors or anybody to come in and say, "You need to do these things," and when they don't do them, you have no one to blame but yourselves, and that's United's problem. It's not even the spending the money, it's just they cannot agree on what the team should look like. And if there's anything you could say about Liverpool as a positive in their approach, is that they've always agreed, we want to do X. We all agree on this strategy and this approach.
Yeah, and realistically, if you look back, even at this year's summer transfer window, they went and they bought Lenny Yoro, somebody that both ourselves who were in contact said, we view you as a potential piece and we view you as a youth prospect piece that's going to develop into the squad over time and our centre-back for the future. Real Madrid said the exact same thing. PSG said the exact same thing. And we all said, this is how we view you. We're only willing to pay 25 million euro. That's it. Euro turned around and said, I want starter minutes. I want a starter's wage. And Man United heard those words being mentioned and sprung into action and paid 3 times the amount that anybody else wanted to. With De Ligt going on all summer, they tried to go for Branthwaite a couple of times and just weren't willing to pay the fee. And then just decided, you know what, we'll just spunk it on De Ligt and Masrani as well. And Masrani, who's never, ever in his career had a money transfer. He's free transferred twice or once before he left Bayern. He's never been let go on a transfer fee. Now all of a sudden is included in a package deal with De Ligt, and they paid 60 million euro for the 2 of them. So now United are up on 130 million euro, and they've yet to improve their squad. De Ligt is an injury-prone player. Masrani is just meh. They got him in to replace Aaron Wan-Bissaka, who left, and now they're stuck at right back again. And then now it's a situation of, okay, well now we got Xerxes in there and has the potential to be a good poacher, but I think the rest of the team behind him is just so abysmal that he's never going to get the service, and it's going to be similar to Hoyland, who just spent 70 million quid on the year before, knowing he has stress fractures in his back, and it came out, as Neil mentioned, that they knew Euro had problems with his metatarsal and immediately breaks his foot within 5 minutes of coming onto the pitch, and he's going to be out till Christmas, and he may not be back to any sort of shape or form before the end of the season. It's one of them. And just to answer to a couple of questions here that came in from JMUs, Nunez or Jota after the break, ride the hot hand. I don't care. At this point, the way that I'm viewing it is 3 points is 3 points. If Nunez scores a hat-trick or if Jota scores a hat-trick, I couldn't care who does it. Just win the damn games. That's my personal view on it. And Jamie's then asking the question of who's everybody's man of the match. Neil, you said you wanted to say something there? Just I seen you take yourself off.
No, just on Jota. There was a lot of good performances today, and he's one that people said, he wasn't really as involved as maybe he has been in the other two games. But I think there was a really good piece of footage that was shown on Sky for the first goal, how he was, I think when we broke with the ball, how he was pointing and saying to Gravenberch or whoever had the ball, push it wide, because we're going to create space at the far post for the header. He's an intelligent player, and I don't think you always see. Yeah, you don't see everything on the TV screen, and
it doesn't show up on a statue either. Like you could see what he was doing in those first goals is he was considered as such a focal point that United committed extra men to him, which then opened up the space in the back, and it was just it's doing stuff that doesn't show up in those intangibles is what makes him a very intelligent and a very good player. It's knowing the game, having a football IQ. And I think Nunez is going to have his time this season. I think it's purely just the way that we all look at it is that Jota is eventually maybe going to get a knock. We all hope he doesn't, because if he doesn't, he's banging 20 this season and we win the league. Genuinely, that's my view on it. But it's one of those where I think he'll be deployed against certain teams. Like if a team plays a high line, like a Spurs, like a City, like who else? Like a Chelsea, you're going to see Nunez being put in there because he's going to similarly to what Carter was mentioning about Victor Osimhen, he's going to make the back line be more honest because they'll be terrified of his pace. And then now you add Chiesa to this too, who's faster than Nunez. He clocked last season 36 kilometers an hour at his top speed. We've got rapid forwards, and it's going to different players will be deployed for different situations, and you'll see some games maybe Nunez will start, you see some games Jota will start, and then they'll rotate in for each other. Is the way that I look at it, but it's an interesting one. Just having a look, is there anything else said here? Gravenberch 9 out of 10. Jimmy is 100% agree with you. He's my man of the match personally. I think everybody said that the man of the match, Arne Slot. Yes, the best ball manager that there is, the best ball Dutch manager that there is in the Premier League. I think everybody's man of the match was a mixture of, Dan mentioned Szoboszlai, Salah, Gravenberch, Diaz, and I think it was a combination of those four realistically. Guys, we are going to leave it there for this evening. I want to thank everybody for joining me, from Mihai, Dan, Patricio, and Neil. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are after battering Man United, which is always beautiful. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Make sure that you have your notification bell on for all future streams and videos so that you never miss out. We have a Chiesa breakdown video of all of his attributes and how well he's going to fit into this side on our YouTube channel, so make sure you jump over there and have a look at it. Liverpool are 3-3. 7 goals scored, 0 goals conceded, and the only team in the Premier League to not concede a goal yet. And now we go into a beautiful international break, followed by a 3 p.m. kickoff at home to Nottingham Forest to come back, which, in my opinion, is an absolutely fantastic game to come back to. Guys, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope everybody has a wonderful end to their week, and we will see you again tomorrow at 7:30. Bye-bye.